Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Rodney Bunner, and I will be your instructor and facilitator today for the TBEST training workshop provided by Florida Department of Transportation. And it is a 2-day workshop that we will be sharing all of our knowledge that we have about TBEST in regards to how you apply TBEST for a TDP or a COA or lots of other transit planning applications. Before we get started, we want to get into some introductions and logistics. And first up, we'll start with introductions. And Chris Wigglesworth is the FDOT TBEST project manager. And I'm not sure if Chris is on at this point. Doesn't look like he's on yet, but that's okay. He will join soon. As I mentioned, my name is Rodney Bunner, and I am the TBEST Solutions Manager at Service Edge Solutions, and I've been working with TBEST for approximately the last 20 years and as the lead developer for the software and also serving FDOT in the state of Florida in providing technical assistance and training and data development for the state for TBEST. And with me is Matt Chang. He will be facilitating in the chat and answering questions as they come up via the chat. So I will serve as the primary instructor. Matt will be engaged as the facilitator through the chat and kind of navigating your questions. The purpose of the workshop today is to gain an understanding of TBEST model validation and model application process. So we're going to go through the build of a model validation, and then we're going to work through the model application process as well. And when I say model application process, that's more like building your scenarios, building your transit networks that would represent an alternative scenario in TBEST, and then putting that through lots of different analysis engines that TBEST has. So we want to provide guidance on how to utilize TBEST to support TDPs and other transit planning applications. So a lot of our focus today is going to be relative to the FDOT Transit Development Plan requirements, and they do have a handbook that was published in 2018 that provides guidance for transit agencies in the state of Florida to produce a 10-year TDP. And we want to do as much as we can to help you see what is in TBEST to help you do that type of analysis that's required in the TDP and put that data inside of it. And then we have lots of other transit planning applications that was mentioned in some of the chat where they want to look at Title VI and COA and those types of applications. And we are going to cover those as well, along with other applications. And we want to demonstrate TBEST features designed for editing the transit network, also something that came up in the chat. Data management, ridership forecasting, equity, market analysis, and network accessibility. So all these are kind of core tools in TBEST that we'll use to perform analysis and then use that information inside of a TDP or other transit planning application. I think I opened, yeah, there we go. Okay. So our general approach, each section that we have today in our training will be a sequence of interactive lecture and exercises where we'll go through the slides and some background explanation. We may perform a demonstration as part of that particular section, or we may do an exercise as part of that particular section. So you should have received a email with the exercises for today and tomorrow in PDF format that you can print out locally and use as a reference. That would be kind of an off-screen reference so you don't take up your screen real estate. So we wanted to provide that to you beforehand so that you can do that printing and have it locally as we're going through the exercises. The exercises we will also do on screen as well with you. So we'll try to time up the exercises and leave you plenty of time to do them locally, but we'll also be doing them on the screen in case you aren't, actually, doing that process locally. So you have both at your disposal. So what we want to do is provide within these sections an example linking TBEST data to real-world TDP development or other transit planning applications. So we'll try to tie in what TBEST has in terms of features with a TDP requirement for data analysis or data input, and use that as a direct reference into the TDP handbook. So as much as we can, we're going to try to fill in the blanks of how you would use TBEST to support your TDP. And we will have a question and answer session at the end of each sections with participants entering the questions via the chat. And as I mentioned, we are going to allow you to unmute yourself to make this a little more interactive. So if you do have a question that you would like to speak, then that's fine. We'll take those questions as well. All right, so you are muted by default. We're going to allow questions via the chat and audio. There is limited breakout rooms. So we will, if you do have a technical issue or something during the training where you need to do a side meeting to talk to Matt outside of the normal discussion, then we do have breakout rooms for you to do. So if you have an issue that you would like to address in a breakout session, just raise your hand or put in the chat directly to Matt that you would like to do a breakout room to address an issue. So please do that if you need to. So we will have a morning and afternoon break of 15 minutes each, and a lunch will be 1 hour. We are recording, as I mentioned, and the recording and the slides will be available on the TBEST website probably in about 2 weeks' time. At the end of the session tomorrow, we're going to ask you to complete a training evaluation form. I will send an email out at the end of the day tomorrow with the information on how to fill that out. The instructor email, myself and Matt, is available here. So even during the training or after the training, feel free to email us and we will respond to any questions that you might have as well. Okay, so in terms of an agenda, today we're going to talk about some introduction and overview and kind of a high-level view of TBEST and what it aspires to and what it does. And then we're going to get into some of the kind of the data building components of TBEST and what the interface is relative to a TBEST transit system and socioeconomic downloads that are available to you from FDOT. In section 3, we're going to talk about transit system base year configurations, so the model characteristics and a base year model run. And then we're going to talk about base year validation and the steps you need to do to create the base year validation. Then we're going to talk about creating existing transit network using GTFS. So everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with GTFS, and TBEST does integrate with it, and we will go through a lot of the details on that. And then finally, today, we're going to talk about creating TBEST application scenarios using the TBEST network editor. So we have a route network editor, a segment editor, a stop editor, and a service editor, and we'll go through all of those in exercises and in the slides. So that's day one. And what I see day one is a data building day where you're taking the components of data that we've kind of pre-configured for you for Florida, and you're going to mesh those together with some local data to create a validated network and then create some application scenarios that would represent a future year context. So that's where we plan to get to today. And then tomorrow, we're going to do more of the analytical side. So we're going to start looking at reporting in terms of maps and reports for TDPs and COAs, including the scenario summary, interactive reporting, socioeconomic land use market summaries, TDP reports, Title VI reports. In section 8, we'll talk about transit network accessibility tools in TBEST, and in 9, analyze service and markets using mobility areas. And in section 10, we'll talk about selecting transit features using the TBEST query tool. And in 11, we'll talk about operational planning tools in TBEST, including a bus stop balancing tool and add-ins, APC stop level ridership, and BRT adjustments to your model. And then in section 12, we'll talk about mobility on demand analysis and the tools that are available to you in TBEST to perform that type of analysis. So that fills out the full agenda for today and tomorrow. And as I said, today is more data building, tomorrow is more analysis. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for all of it. And even if you don't, it's all going to be on the website at the end, so you'll be able to reference it into the future.